You're listening to The Unstoppables, where each week we show you how to overcome obstacles and transform the sting of failure into the reward of growth. And now, here's your host, best-selling author, keynote speaker, and CEO, Bill Wooditch.
You're tuned into that place, the Unstoppables, the place where the achievers tell you their secrets. They actually share those secrets so you can shorten the distance between where you are and maybe lessen that metaphorical blood flow to where you intend to go. I'm honored to have today Shravan Parsi. He's got a bio, he's got a history that you have to actually hear and perhaps see to believe. You talk about taking risk. You talk about jumping to an entirely different industry. You talk about the essence of an entrepreneur, a curious learner who moves always forward. He's my special guest. Shravan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's my honor. And I read your book, and looking through your book, I found so many similarities and connection in what we do every day. And you're currently in commercial real estate, but you're currently engaged in the art of life, of development, of business. And this audience is, we've got so many entrepreneurs tuned in, so many intrapreneurs who are going to be entrepreneurs, and so many business people across the nation and across the world who want to learn from people like you. So probably you would do a disservice for me to give your background, but why don't you give me a 30,000 foot, here's where I started, and here's where I am currently.
Sure. And I'm very impressed with your audience base. I think being an entrepreneur and also being an intrapreneur, these, especially in the current times, are very exciting. And I think a 30,000 feet overview of me. I was born and raised in India, and the education became a prime focus within our family. Even though my dad was a medical doctor, he always felt the best thing he can do for us as kids is education. So I think that emphasis was there in our lives right from the childhood. And with that background, somehow as a kid, I was tuned more into the scientific aspect of the business, even though I always treat life as a business, and the science behind it is what always attracted me. So I pursued education in the pharmaceutical research. Having completed masters in that industry, I was working for a pretty big pharmaceutical company. Everyone knows it's Merck. I was part of Sharing Plow, which was acquired by Merck, and working on a $1 billion drug. 80% of the revenue for this particular company came from one drug. So I always focused, what if this drug goes out of patent? And then I started within pharmaceutical world, I was researching the business aspects of it. Why only one drug makes 80% of the revenue? What's the fallback situation? Those times really, that's when I started venturing more into reading business, books about business, books about entrepreneurship. Then I decided one day that I'm going to launch a pharmaceutical company. And then once I saw that, wow, pharmaceutical companies, it's not an easy way to start because one, most of them are $1 billion companies. Most of them are public. Just their research spend alone is $1 billion. So then I started venturing, what else? Then one thing that really changed my perspective is you need to be very bold and flexible in life. So that's already inherent in me. It's this, I can't overemphasize that. Then the next one is the flexibility, and the financial freedom became my flexibility. Like I can be only flexible in life if I have access to financial freedom. And that's when real estate opened the door for me. And I think so, and that's my 30,000 feet overview, but real quick, a quick 30-second, I started investing in single family real estate. Then I didn't really like just the single family homes, too much of operations. Then why not I have multiple homes in one property? So bought my first 200 unit apartment complex and then never looked behind. And then we ended up in buying a portfolio of 4,000 units in the multifamily space. That's what we did in the last 6 years, and sold 3,500 out of the 4,000 unit portfolio in 2019, just in time to position ourselves for post-COVID world.
There's a lot in that 30,000 feet, but I'm going to give you one right now. You underscore what I say on almost every show. You work for your freedom. You've got to be able to do those things that expand your lifestyle, that give you the freedom. The most ultimate and important thing to me is the ability to move, to be flexible, as you would call it. And you got to work for your freedom. That means you've got to be, as you said, flexible, but it takes financial wherewithal to become flexible. You were also curious. You looked into why. You looked into what's making this happen. You're a scientist who then became more pragmatic and took the concepts, maybe from a lab that were hermetically sealed in their perfect way, and then applied them to the DNA of commercial real estate. One connection, my brother worked at Shearing Plow. I lived with him in a one-bedroom apartment in Virginia, and his first company was Shearing Plow. So you got, wow. There's the universe just jumping in on me right away. I'm going to ask this question. It talks a lot. I mean, this speaks to your mindset. You say the current time is very exciting. Everything is found in the definition. So I'm going to ask you, what is exciting?
What's exciting right now is I wanted to get to $1 billion worth of assets under ownership in the next 2 to 3 years. And the entire 2019, we were struggling to find good, solid return apartment deals. People were overpaying for that. And in 2019, the 2 acquisitions we made, we had to sift through hundreds and hundreds of properties. And then going to the nuts and bolts, in 2020, post-COVID world, there's a reset within, we were going through the longest real estate expansion, and it's hard to buy deals in the peak time. So even though the silver lining out of all this, even though I never want a kind of a world we're living in today, where you have to social distance, you can't really do a lot of things in a normal way. But unfortunately, what's the silver lining? And the silver lining here is there's a soft reset in the industry. And the second is there'll be access to opportunities. So the great wealth changes hands in terms of economic distress. And then is that the time? And I think what's coming is very exciting for me.
Yeah, people need to hear that. And it really reminds me of Churchill is when you're going through hell, just keep going. And you seem to be an inveterate optimist. I think it's in your DNA, and we're going to get to that in a minute. But in reading your bio, you're actually manifesting what I've read in your bio, that you're a daring leader with an eye for the future, and you have a fearlessness to succeed, Why don't you tell me how you define fear and how you deal with fear?
I'm fearful because fear is essential, because that's how we differentiate the good and the bad deals. So fear is essential, but how do we deal with it is what makes, So I think I started off saying a couple of things in the beginning, be bold and flexible. Being bold will give you some essential power to overcome the fear. I think that's extremely. And the second one was also, I'm going to tell you how else, and pivot when necessary and make good use of your time. If I'm fearful, I need to divert my attention from that fear into the actual solution, because procrastination is the worst thing that you can do for yourself. If you keep pushing out, I think tackle it with both hands and then resolve it. And then that will make the fear not only go away, but also gives you some good solutions. And I think that's one of the things I follow quite a bit.
You're moving from that morass of emotion, taking action and coming up to a logical solution, strategy or tactic that you employ, which is really then lessening the amount of fear you have. Would that be pretty accurate?
Absolutely. I think you put it in a much better way than what I did earlier. And when
I read your book,
the necessity is the mother of invention. So that's exactly what I meant.
And you're taking me in a lot of different directions, and I'm really enjoying that. And the one direction you talked about today is time. And people don't know what to do with that time. So you can sit on the couch and do what a lot of people are doing. You can imbibe and different things, and you can maybe dull the senses to what's really happening, or you can productively do things. Start importing information, start importing ideas, just be, which is very hard for a lot of people to do, is just be. What are you doing with your time during this period?
So maybe I'll just directly jump into a case study, which we did in the month of April. Our team basically underwrites many deals that we find. And then in the month of April, there's a status quo. We don't know what's happening. So what do we do in that spare time? Because it became we were taken away from our regular day of work, and then we can't really find and underwrite many deals. So that spare time as a team, one, both at the professional level and at the personal level. As a professional level, we started organizing our entire company strategy for the next 6 to 9 months. And so we started implementing certain systems within the company's spare time because we couldn't do what we do on a regular basis in the month of April or May. So we put systems in place we started using Salesforce as a CRM and started organizing all of our contacts, because come August, September, there'll be many deals on our way. We have a way to reach out to our investors. So implementing the Salesforce system was one. Personally, I just picked up 2 new hobbies, because let's say I don't have that much of, I'm not working that hard in April. And then, part of me as an entrepreneur, I think, wow, make good use of your time, but there's nothing to be done. and then so me and my girlfriend, we picked up a hobby, 2, one hike, going on hikes. Living in Austin, we have access to many hiking areas in the hill country. That's one. And the second is we picked up as a couple, we picked up a good hobby of playing golf. I used to really feel bad myself if I spent my afternoons in a golf course during the work hours. But now I was digging it. I was enjoying that moment, because what else can you do? You can't do many deals in the month of April or May. So I think we need to have a relaxing mind, so that when we are going back in May, June, July, that was the strategy. We're going to be roaring. We want to position ourselves.
Let me tell you what I think you have right in that equation is I'm reading there's so many distressed couples because they actually have to look at each other and then perhaps talk. So the divorce rates are going up. So that's one industry that hasn't been affected. It's actually been a boom industry is divorce. And you're actually doing things with your girlfriend. And you're doing things that are healthy.
Yes.
I gotta give you credit. I gotta give you credit. He's the CEO and founder of American Ventures. It's a commercial real estate company. And he's the ForbesBooks author of The Science of the Deal, the DNA of Multifamily and Commercial Real Estate Investing. My friend, Shravan Parsi. Could you please tell us where we could find you?
Yes. If you go to our website, americanventures.com, you'll get to know more about American Ventures. And my book that Forbes published, scienceofthedeal.com.
Shravan, what is the DNA of multifamily and commercial real estate investing? What is actually in that DNA?
DNA, as you know, it's a deoxyribonucleic acid. It's what differentiates a thing from a being. And it's a fundamental block of all of our, any organism, at least the way that we know the life. So if you translate that exact same thing into multifamily and commercial real estate, the DNA of fundamentals, the DNA of investing, you buy, get a good cash flow while you hold on to the deal. And then when you sell, the property has to have some kind of good returns at the exit. So on the investment world, the DNA is a good cash flow. Cash is king. Cash flow is even bigger. So that's my number one. And then number two, when you talk about multifamily and commercial real estate, you're talking about access to big capital that needs to be invested. And economies of scale is what attracted me from single family investments into multifamily and beyond. So that's a second, economies of scale. How do I build a portfolio of $1 billion worth of assets under ownership? ability to scale the business from one property to multiple properties. So and the third and the most important team, you can't do it by yourself. You need a powerful team. You as a founder, you could be a visionary or you could be very analytical, but you need to have a powerful team that supports you, and then everyone is on board with that. So I think in my world, those are the three important things: returns, team, and fundamentals.
But you adhere to the fundamentals, because once you start to digress from fundamentals, all is lost. I salute you on team as well. I know I have to address my weaknesses, which are myriad, and I address them through a really good, strong, and powerful team. And it's an evolution. It'll probably move together. We're very, very similar with that. And I want to ask you a question that many people have regret. They get to a point in your life and they maybe should have changed into another venture, into another career, done something different, but they're hesitating and they don't want to take that risk. Yeah, and you say that now is the time to get out there and start that new venture. Tell me why you say that.
So when I say now is the time, the current times are creating opportunities that we may not have access to in the past. So in my world, I'm thinking of getting into $1 billion worth of assets under ownership. This post-COVID world, there'll be access to many distressed properties. So, but I already know what I'm doing in my life because I have a powerful track record that goes back to starting investing in real estate in 2003. But let me take you back to the time when in 2003, when I know I don't have any direct background in real estate. So why now is two reasons. You may get access to opportunities that were not presented before. And two, if you have an option to go from zero to I drive one of the fast cars, everyone talks about 0 to 60 in 2 seconds, 3 seconds, that can happen now. So you have an option to bypass driving, crawling, walking, crawling, and running, or whichever. And now you can directly go to the running phase. But the most important thing is, are you ready? And I feel that two things that are necessary. First thing, you need to first make sure that you have enough income already coming in, or you have enough savings to support you and your family, because this is going to be a wild run. It's going to be, there'll be lots of roller coasters. If you can't handle stress, maybe you shouldn't be an entrepreneur. If you can handle stress, that's the first test, and then let's talk about how. And then the next steps are, select an industry that you are very passionate about, and select an industry that works with or without your active involvement all the time. And can you replace yourself with the team members at every step of the way so that you can go after the bigger goals?
My goal early was to be redundant, was to become redundant. So I wasn't needed on every one of those decisions on the line at every point of sale. And I worked myself into that position and had very capable people to be able to do that for me. But when you were deciding between, and you have a lineage that's very successful, very, very school oriented, very much achievement oriented. Sometimes there's a disappointment in the family because there's certain familial expectations. And here you are doing really well in pharmaceuticals, and you say, you know what, I'm going to build a bridge to the other side. I'm going to jump over, I'm going to walk across there, I'm going to run across that. You had to have concerns. So what were some of the concerns before you started taking that journey, that jump or that walk across the bridge? How did you do that? What were they?
Yes, I think it was a pretty tough decision on my part, because I had years and years of education in an industry that's pretty powerful. And there's a career path that was laid out both by me and the people and my mentors. My toughest decision was, will I be successful in the new venture? Because I am steering myself away from those years of education. So will I be successful? Because if the risk reward ratio is not in my favor, maybe I should just wait for that time, And then the second thing was, if I'm able to do whatever I did in that particular field by having enough talent and resources, I basically made a decision to myself that I had to be successful. There's no other route. There's failure is not an option. So I think, but preparing your mindset to overcome that failure, that fear, is essential. And the third and most important is you can't become a brain surgeon without that background. So any field you get into, you need to educate yourself and then know the fundamentals. You have to be in and out, hire your weaknesses, and strengthen your strengths. I think that's the other thing I did pretty good.
Those are great core beliefs and a great system. Tell me about how you assess risk. And you talk about predictable risks and unpredictable risks. So how do you actually assess what an unpredictable risk is, and then how do you move forward through that?
Yeah, I think the current times we are living through, the unpredictable risk is pretty wide and rampant, which we, in my normal world, haven't stress tested for those unpredictable risks. But the predictable risks, every industry has a set of tools that are available because I haven't invested in multifamily investment. I've been following an investment sector that's been already there, and there are lots of tools available. So first, take advantage of the tools. And the second, let's use a case study model. Let's say I'm investing in a 300-unit apartment complex in Dallas Fort Worth, and we look into submarket fundamentals. There are tools that will give you access to all those. Then our goal is to earn certain returns based on the rental income. So what we do in the underwriting model, we have various stress variables. Can we increase the rents from $1,000 to $1,100 by going through this systematic approach of renovation program? And what if, is the deal good if you can only get a $50 rent bump instead of $100 rent bump? So I think, so I'm just giving a very simple example, but there are many variables that we use within our underwriting model. It's basically, these are predictable risks. Unpredictable risks. What if 20% of the tenants can't pay rent? And it's in hindsight, 2020 now. So back in March, we laid out a program as the most of the counties are going in shelter in place. We basically proactively reached out to all the tenants, and we were quite successful in collecting 95% of the rents. And while industry struggled to collect 80 to 90% of the rents in the market, we were able to collect 95% of the rent. But that 5% of the non-defaulting payments was the unpredictable risk that we had to take. And I think that's a risk we took. And so the returns may not be as good on those two properties that didn't collect all the rents, but we having enough cash on hand to operate the business in terms of these is essential. So I think having a safety net is the unpredictable, a mitigation for unpredictable risks.
There's something to be said about being agile, isn't there? And fast, decisive, yes, and moving. Because you got to pivot. As an achiever, and you always want to keep building. I talk about setting that bar. You set the bar of excellence for yourself. You compete with yourself. You keep setting that bar. How do you define success?
Wow, that's I'm still defining success every day. I think 6 years ago, my level of success was, my thinking towards success is different than what it is today. So I'm going to define success in 4 different ways. 1, I think I started off saying financial freedom. And I think I have a kind of a net worth number in my head that I need to attain that before a certain time. And so 1 is financial. 2nd is the relationships. All this financial success and freedom you have is of no significance either if you don't have the right relationships, and right relationships, right team, right mentors, right business partners. So I think the 2nd is a relationship success. 3rd is that flexibility, which I talked about. Will this financial freedom and the relationships gives me that flexibility in life? Let's say right after this podcast, if I want to go to Colorado and spend the 4th, even though we don't have a plan, but I should be able to do that. And then if it's something is stopping you from doing that, then there's somebody missing in your team that's not overtaking. And the fourth and most important thing, which I feel is essential, is I think more than religion, more than it's like what you believe in, you know, the whole. So I may have to show you this book. I think you already know the Ray Dalio's new book, The Principles. I think everything is happening in the world for the betterment of the world itself. So you're playing a small role. So what are you leaving for the world? I mean, did you make the world a better place than what you were, you know, what you inherited? So I think, and I think that's the one that I'm having to evolve, the fourth and fundamental principle, which I feel I want to make a mark in world that makes the world a better place. And I still have to quantify that.
I will bookend our experience. When I started my company, I wanted to go to Australia. So I went to Australia and I was involved in every deal that was going on while I was there. Really never had a vacation. Demanded everything be faxed to me. That's the time. So I'll give you a date stamp on me. And you know, the joke of it was the day had already gone by in the United States. So it really didn't matter. I couldn't do anything about it. So I learned two things from there. I learned that I need to hire the right people to do those things and put them in position, pay more perhaps, but make sure that I have the right talent, maybe give up some of the mothership of stock. In return, I wanted my freedom. So I would be able to move with that flexibility you talk about. I want to pick up the phone and go somewhere tomorrow, I go. And I earned that by giving some things up. And my mind has always been for the betterment of society as a whole. It's just part of my DNA. But I'm going to flip to something you're going to have a hard time with. I'm predicting it up front. I know this about you at this point. Failure is the other side of success. It's the same coin, just different side. So what was your biggest failure? What'd you learn from it?
My biggest failure so far in life, we invested certain capital in a market that we're not familiar with. And we also invested capital in an investment where there were controllable risks, as we talked about, then uncontrolled risks, where the city has to make certain steps in order for that neighborhood to improve. And those are completely beyond your control. So I think not knowing the market well and making an investment was one of my biggest failures. And it only happened on one deal out of so many deals we invested. But that taught me, you know, I think what doesn't kill you will make you stronger. So obviously that risk was very localized to that particular investment. But going forward, we wouldn't invest in a deal unless I have boots on the ground, and then hire local experts to help me overcome those risks. And the uncontrolled risk is the risk that we take every day. And I'm not ashamed of that. I think if the city didn't act on that particular neighborhood, we tried, it's not in my control. But the controllable risk is where I want to have a control on.
You know, my biggest failure in business was a 7-figure deal. It didn't kill me, but it stung. You know, I was looking to Nietzsche. I hope it doesn't kill me, but it did sting. And one of the reasons why it didn't succeed is the thing that you talked about. I don't want people to miss this, is you got to have boots on the ground. Absentee ownership doesn't work, and neither does ownership by proxy, and you've got to know the territory. We didn't, and it made all the difference. So it turned it from that moment forward, we knew what to look for, and you can't. I mean, we had vetted and done all those things, but you still probably have to experience some of it to think, wow, maybe I am vulnerable to a degree. Excellent point on failure. Tell me where we can find you again. People will reach out to you perhaps, and they say, hey, I want to learn more from him. I actually want to read his book. They should read your book. Tell me where they find it.
Yes, the book is very simple. Go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or your favorite bookstore. Even if you Google The Science of the Deal, we are #1 hit, and we take the whole front page, The Science of the Deal, or scienceofthedeal.com. And in terms of my investment company, it's American Ventures, americanventures.com. And if you email to invest@American Ventures, one of our team members can get in touch pretty quickly. We just use the email just to keep it for easy access.
I got a feeling we could go granular and really dig deep into some of the subjects we broached. We could also probably head up to the ozone layer with some ideas and philosophical constructs that, you probably will lose me at some point, but I'd love to go that high. It's kind of that low oxygen route. But you just have that way about you that you can just you want to hang out and just keep talking. This is my last question, and it's a walk-off for you. You already addressed it in part of what you were talking about. You're leaving this earth. It's done. You've lived a long, long life. You've done so many things. That bar of success has been so high. You got so many shiny objects with paddle shifts. You got everything you wanted. You can go wherever you want to go. What would you want that one paragraph that you would write for others to learn from, to grow from? What would that paragraph look like?
Yep, I think it's almost like a that's how I opened one of the book that's published recently. Never settle for less in life. Never settle for less in life, and do whatever it takes to achieve what you want or what you desire. And I think settling for less, I think all of us have the unique gift, especially if you're thinking of becoming an entrepreneur. There's already a gift that was given to you, and so never compromise on your values, and also never settle for less in life.
I got a virtual high five for you on that one, and a virtual hug as well. Beautiful. Don't settle. Do what it takes. Know what it is before you commit to doing what it takes. And when you do what the ancient Greeks did. Burn your boat, man. Go always forward. Learn along the way. You'll make it. It's in your DNA. This is Bill Woodage, my special guest, Shravan Parsi. You've been excellent, and I look forward to connecting with you again, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate your time.
Take care.
You've been listening to The Unstoppables. If you liked today's episode, please consider subscribing. We have a new episode every Thursday. Please help spread the word of the show by leaving us a positive review on iTunes or Stitcher. Those 5-star reviews really help out the show. You can subscribe to The Unstoppables on iTunes, Spotify, or Stitcher to stay up to date on the latest episodes. Thanks again for listening. Always forward.